In December 2013, thousands of people spent 3 days chasing 96,000 stolen Bitcoin across the blockchain. They watched it move. They watched it get split apart, mixed, and recombined. They posted every step in public, in real time. 96,000 coins went into the laundering machine, and 96,000 came out the other side, and they followed all of it to one final address. And then someone noticed his own Bitcoin arriving at that same address. The wallet wasn't a thief's. It never had been. For 3 days, an entire online community had been breathlessly tracking the internal accounting of a currency exchange. That's not the end of this story. It's barely the middle. Because the man most people believe was behind Sheep Marketplace would still be making Czech national news 12 years later, and he'd take a government minister down with him. Start with what Sheep was. In May 2013, an advert appeared on the Bitcoin forum for a new dark web marketplace called Sheep Marketplace. Nothing remarkable about it at the time. There were a lot of these. But people looked at that post again later, and it had a tell. The English was clumsy, missing articles, odd word order, prepositions in the wrong places. The kind of errors a Slavic language speaker makes, and it mentioned Neta, a web framework built in the Czech Republic. Nobody cared in May. They cared a lot in December. The model was simple. Buyers and sellers met on the site. Buyers put their Bitcoin into escrow, held by the marketplace. If the deal went through, Sheep released the money to the seller and kept a commission. Ordinary marketplace mechanics, except the goods were drugs and weapons and stolen data, and the escrow was holding a very large pile of somebody else's money. Then, in October 2013, the FBI arrested Ross Ulbricht and shut down Silk Road. Every Silk Road customer needed somewhere to go. Sheep was there, and it grew fast. On the 21st of November 2013, a user calling himself ebook101 found a flaw. The escrow system didn't properly verify that funds had actually been released before letting a withdrawal go through. So ebook101 withdrew, and withdrew again, and kept going, pulling out far more than he was ever entitled to, draining tens of thousands of Bitcoin out of the marketplace. Sheep closed transfers from escrow. Then, on the 2nd of December, it shut down completely, and the administrator stepped forward as the victim. His account, a dealer, had found a bug and stolen 5,400 Bitcoin. Terrible thing, nothing to be done. Users did not buy it. They knew roughly how much money was sitting in that escrow, and it was not 5,400 coins. If a thief had taken 5,400, where was the rest? None of it came back to anyone. There had also been a detail weeks earlier that people now remembered. The admin had announced withdrawals would be paused for a few hours while a site-wide Bitcoin tumbler was installed, a laundering feature built into the marketplace. Users had waited patiently for it, and there was one more thing. The forums closed, but the site itself stayed up, still running, still accepting deposits from anyone who hadn't heard. Sheep's own users concluded it was being kept alive deliberately to keep catching people. Vendors started editing their product listings, replacing the pictures with warnings, because it was the only channel left to reach a buyer. 2 moderators, posting as Krolal Tweed and the Shepherd, confirmed what everybody already suspected. The admin had gone silent. By the 2nd of December, the thread on Bitcointalk was titled, "Sheep Marketplace Turns Out to Be a Scam. Nearly 40,000 BTC." Here is where the numbers stop agreeing with each other, and it matters, so pay attention to which number is which. The admin said 5,400 Bitcoin. The Bitcointalk thread pointed at a specific wallet, address starting 1EIVHZ, holding exactly 39,918 Bitcoin. At the exchange rates of the time, roughly $46 million. And then the Reddit crowd found a different wallet. This one held 96,000 Bitcoin, just over $100 million, 3 numbers. Nobody knew which was real, and the crowd went with the biggest one. What happened next was only possible with Bitcoin, and it's the reason this story exists at all. In a normal financial system, a theft disappears into private ledgers. Only the banks and the police can see the money move. With Bitcoin, every transaction is public by design. It has to be, because the network verifies transactions collectively. What's hidden isn't the money. It's the identity behind the wallet, which means anyone could watch. One Reddit user in particular took it on, an account called Sheeproadreloaded2, post after post, tracking every hop the money made. The obstacle was tumblers. A tumbler takes coins from lots of different people, mixes them all in one pot, and pays out different coins the other end. Follow money into a tumbler and it disperses into everyone else's transactions and you lose it. That works for small amounts. It does not work for $100 million. The volume was so enormous it swamped every other transaction being mixed at the same time. 96,000 went in. 96,000 came out. The crowd never lost the trail. The trail was too big to hide in the crowd. They followed it to a final resting address, and for a few hours, it looked like ordinary people on a forum had done something law enforcement couldn't. Then another user on the sub-forum noticed something strange. His own Bitcoin was being sent to that same address. His Bitcoin. Nothing to do with sheep. Nothing to do with any theft. The address belonged to BTCE, a Bitcoin exchange, where people bought and sold in the ordinary way. What they'd been tracking wasn't a thief laundering a fortune. It was the plumbing. Coins going into an exchange and coins coming out of it, which is what exchanges do all day, 3 days, thousands of people, and exchanges' internal accounts. The Guardian's Alex Hearn, writing on the 9th of December, worked out what the actual thief had probably done. Not an elaborate shell game. He had likely converted the Bitcoin into real money at the first opportunity, like a normal person, while everyone else chased a ghost through the blockchain. Sheeproadreloaded never accepted it. His parting message is worth hearing in full, because it's what the end of a 3-day obsession sounds like. You all stop him becoming the richest man in Europe in 20 years. I'm going home. I'm tired. I've got no milk in the fridge, and I need to go back to my day job of driving about in a van, solving mysteries. The comedy of that is real. So is the thing sitting underneath it. Reddit had a rule against posting personal information, enforced harder than almost anything else on the site, and it had that rule for a reason. 8 months before Sheep, in April 2013, users of the same platform had tried to identify the Boston Marathon bomber. They named Sunil Tripathi, a missing student from Brown University. He had nothing to do with it. He was cleared when the Zarnev brothers were identified, but not before people had vandalized a memorial page and contacted his family to tell them he was a terrorist. Tripathi was found dead a week after the bombing. That's the risk the sheep crowd was running while it was congratulating itself. It had already decided on circumstantial evidence who its target was. The 5,400 Bitcoin, the theft the admin actually described, was solved, but not by the crowd. The FBI watched the wallets. They waited. And when the coins were eventually moved to Coinbase, a mainstream exchange with real identity checks, the people behind them stopped being anonymous. Nathan Gibson and Sean Mackard, 24 and 21 years old, facing up to 20 years. In 2020, they appealed, arguing that they weren't traditional criminals. That's the theft the admin blamed for the collapse. It doesn't account for the rest of the money, and it never did. Meanwhile, the crowd had a suspect for the bigger question: who ran sheep? A month and a half before the shutdown, a Reddit user posting as the Duded23 had traced the marketplace's ordinary web address, sheepmarketplace.com, back to a single IP address in the Czech Republic. People had read that warning at the time and stayed away. Now it came back. Combined with the Slavic language tel in that original advert, and the Czech framework mentioned in it, attention landed on a Czech programmer named Tomas Jirikovsky. There was a lot of circumstantial evidence. Enough for the internet to be certain, not enough for a Czech court. And this is where the story slows down. The crowd was sure in 2013. The legal system took another 3 years. Jirikovsky was arrested in 2016. He was convicted of embezzlement and drug trafficking for running Sheep Marketplace, sentenced to 9 years, and served 4. The internet had been right. It had also, 3 days into its investigation, been chasing a currency exchange. And it had been ready to name people on evidence a court eventually needed years to test. Both of those are true at once. Then, in 2025, this story did something almost nobody sees coming. Jirikovsky, out of prison, offered the Czech Ministry of Justice a gift: 468 Bitcoin. The ministry took it. The minister, Pavel Blažek, described the donation as clean. It was sold for around 1 billion Czech koruna, roughly $45 million. And then it emerged where the coins had come from: the exit scam of another dark web marketplace, Nucleus. Blažek resigned in June 2025. The government survived a no-confidence vote over it months before a national election. His successor, Eva de Croix, commissioned an independent audit from Grant Thornton, which concluded in late July that the ministry should never have accepted the Bitcoin, that it likely came from criminal proceeds, and that accepting it may itself have been a criminal offense. In August 2025, Czech police raided a house in Břeclav and detained Jirikovsky again. The investigation had widened to money laundering and drug offenses. So, 12 years on, the marketplace collapsed. The internet chased 96,000 coins that were never stolen into a wallet that belonged to an exchange for 3 days in public. The FBI quietly caught 2 young men by waiting for them to touch a regulated platform. The Czech courts took 3 years to convict the man Reddit had named in a weekend, and the money outlived all of it, long enough to be handed to a government, sold for $45 million, and take down a justice minister. Every transaction was public the entire time. All of it, visible to anyone who looked. That was never the hard part. The hard part was knowing what you were looking at. Subscribe, and the next one is on screen.